I think it's high time that the bubble system was scrapped because it works. It works tough. The poorer you are, the harder the bubble system is. I was talking to a dad from Manchester last week, and he is on a 0 hours contract. He has to pay the rent. He's the wage earner for the family, but his son had been sent home because someone else in his class had tested positive. Every day, this guy had done a lateral flow test on his son, and there were 5 negatives over 5 days. But his son still couldn't go back to school for the whole of that week. So he couldn't go to work, so he couldn't learn. So he was worried about the rent, the bills, the food. And of course, that leads to a huge amount of stress and tension in a home. So quite aside from the loss of learning and classroom time, there's all of that disruption to our household. And we just know, don't we, the anxiety, the worry, that we all save our worst behaviors for indoors, don't we? So all of this builds up. It's like the pressure builds up, and it's sometimes like a bomb going off. It's great schools are going to be open.
Now, Steve, I was going to say, well, because as a parent myself, obviously, I'm pleased that they're open because then I can get on with working. I totally get where that gentleman was coming from. But what do you think should go in place? I mean, there's talk of vaccinating children and things like that to stop this. Obviously, they're getting rid of the bubble, but COVID may well still be a bit of an issue. What are your thoughts on the idea that children should be vaccinated?
Well, I think COVID is going to be an issue. Just yesterday, the health secretary said that by September, we'll have 100,000, that some estimates, scientific estimates are that we're going to have 100,000 new cases of COVID a day. It's running at around 25,000 at the moment. So we've not reached the peak of this Delta variation. It's going to go up and up and up and up. But two things we know, three things we know, perhaps. One, the link between catching the virus and hospitalization or very serious symptoms and death has been broken, not always, but in the most part. But then we know these things as well. This virus does not impact young children in any serious way. If they get any symptoms at all, they're mild. Primary school children have been back in school for well over a year now, and across our 30,000 kids, we've not had one example of a primary school child having anything other than mild symptoms. We also know that the adult population has been vaccinated. So for primary school children to go back, it's not going to harm them. We know that's what we've always been told, and it's our lived experience as educationists. And they're not going to act as some vector back into the community because adults have been vaccinated. I think it's a bit different for secondary school children because we also know, don't we, and we're told by the scientists that the symptoms can be more severe in their case. So what I would say is, why not begin to vaccinate all teenagers now? Canada's doing it, America's doing it, and that way we can be sure that September's term and that whole new academic year isn't going to be disturbed again. We're going to get a clear run through, which is what we all want for our kids, as the Secretary of Education said.
Steve, do you feel as though the focus is so much now on September rather than what's happening for the tail end of this term now?
I also agree with that point. I think that's a brilliant point. You see, back to the little discussion we were having earlier about families who haven't been in lockdown, who can't work from home. I often say, the whole notion of a lockdown is a bit of a middle class thing, really, isn't it? It's the governing classes. If you've got a frontline job, if you've got a 0 hours contract job, if you're out there, you've got to be out there to work. So the longer your child is at home, and there are 2 weeks to run on this term, the more disruption it brings and the loss of earning power it brings and the more tension it brings into the home, understandably anxiety. So if the bubbles were lifted, if the Secretary of State had said that the bubbles were going to be lifted now, that would have been a wonderful thing. I think we were scared that he was going to say they're going to be lifted for September because we don't want to waste the summer either. So in our schools and in many schools around the country, there's all sorts of summer activities that people get involved in. I'm sorry, my phone went off there. There's all sorts of summer activities for our children, and If the bubbles had stayed in place, we'd have lost those. So the sooner the bubbles go, the better it is for most families across the UK.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.